something.
You're going to figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Support your local charities and win great prizes by playing bingo on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.
Bless you.
You're watching Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hello, NB Polypod world. Welcome back to another week. My name is Brent Harris. I'm here with Joanna Killen. Actually, it's this way on my camera.
Hi.
This way. And we are here in Mennequest, which is also known as St. John, New Brunswick, and on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, the Maliseet, and the Paskatoma Kadi of the Willistic people. We are excited. It is a whole new week. It's a whole new vibe. We've got Carney fever. We've got Polyev tanking in the polls, possibly. Who knows? We'll talk about some of that. But for all of those New Brunswickers, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it is maple syrup season, baby. We're in. So if I could take my computer outside, I could show you my little Stanley Street sugar shack. It's literally a pile of bricks and some wood burning under it and an old pot. So very rudimentary. We are tapping 5 trees here in the Stanley Street, Wright Street corridor. And 2 of them are sugar maples, though. So for those of you who don't know anything about maple syrup and sap, when you've got a sugar maple, the amount of sap that you need to extract is pretty significantly reduced, which is great. So we've got 2 sugar maples, we've got 3 regular maples, and yeah, I'm guessing we get probably about 110, 120 liters of sap, depending on how long the season is going in the freeze thaw cycle. So anyway, Stanley Street Sugar Shack, shout out. Here we go.
Yeah, it's quite the operation. It's been really interesting watching it all unfold around here in this little neighborhood corner of St. John's. So kind of that urban agriculture thing going on, which is great. And yeah, no, when we found out this week too that we're going to be working on a project to bring 50 planters.
That's right.
To deliver free planters delivered to nonprofits and organizations and neighborhoods to kind of beautify the city a bit more. So we're all over here working on different stuff to make St. John a little bit brighter this spring, which will be, it's coming. It's happening right now. It's beautiful out.
Be the change. Be the change you want to see in the world.
Because there's a lot of change in the world we are not wanting to see. And yeah, that's certainly weighing heavily.
And we've been on here for months and moaning about stuff. So it's about time we got our hands into some new things and put our shoulder to the wheel on. Not that we haven't been working on the good things too, but it does feel nice to be like, you know what? Not only am I still going to continue to moan about problems, I will also start to contribute to the overall spring flavor and yeah, like you say, urban agriculture is so cool and it's so easy to start out in. And you think of maple trees, like I'm tapping 2 of my neighbors' trees.
Yeah.
Or 3 of my neighbors' trees. So I got 2 different neighbors, 2 on one on the other. And like it's just a reminder that when you think about your surroundings, when you think about the world around you and the nature, there is often ways that collaboration can build something bigger, the sum of the parts, right?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. So anyway, it gives me a little sense of hope, even though last night my little brick pile fireplace, don't tell the City of St. John Fire Department this, please, because I'm technically now supposed to be using CSA approved burn pit, which I will have very soon. Don't worry, everybody. I'm not going to be a little about it forever. But for now, I needed to get started because
More hours.
I had no more had no more room for sap, and I needed to start boiling it off. But I did. Unfortunately, my little brick pile did tip over last night, and I lost like 12 liters of sap, which would probably be about like 300 milliliters of syrup by the time it's boiled off. But hey,
It's the Sugar Shack problem, it happens. It's the way it is. But yeah, so this week we see a new prime minister in Mark Carney, and I did actually go through the process to become a Liberal member and vote for the leader.
You little
in
traitor.
This race. And it was super interesting because Canada Post now has this thing called Identity Plus, and in order to vote, you had to upload your passport and your driver's license to this app that Canada Post owns, or all of a sudden. So for those 15-minute city people and digital ID people, I was like, oh, this is just certainly something that I feel those who are afraid of a digital ID will not be touching with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, but
So
those people are all in Pierre Poilievre's party, or they're in the People's Party of Canada or whatever.
I mean, it's a great way to do it. Lots of countries have digital IDs, digital documents, things like that. Because it's funny. When you have a baby, they just send you the birth certificate and the Medicare and all this other kind of stuff. But then when you go to, of course, get the benefits, like the monetary benefits, are like, whoa. Prove that you had this baby. You're like, you guys gave me these documents for this child. Anyway, it's just this like entire ID thing that will hopefully, I think it'll be better if we can have everything more streamlined that way. But I'm sure it'll cause a ruckus amongst some.
Oh, don't worry. It's Big Brother's secret attempt to hijack your ID. And I'm like,
Yes.
you guys realize your ID's already been hijacked, right? Like this isn't new. Like just because the government now doesn't have to send you extra documents and make you run to 3 different departments to confirm your identity doesn't mean that your algorithm and your social media overlords don't know everything about you and know where you are. And if you're off grid, good for you. I don't think there's an inherent benefit to being off grid, except that you get to like wear your moral hierarchy front and center and say, I'm not participating in this. I mean, I don't know. But anyway. Okay, so you voted, you became a Liberal. So now you're a Liberal.
Well, just for a moment, I was saying to you before the show, it's like I've been in every single party, I think, at this point in my life.
Burn it down.
Champagne socialist.
Yeah.
But like I legitimately believe in being part of all these processes, no matter how passionate you feel about one side or the other. There is always a role to play, and there's no law against joining political parties, as these terms roll around.
No law against participation.
No.
So that's good. Okay, so how did you find it? Like, okay, we know your ID got. We know you're now part of the digital ID takeover.
Absolutely.
But what else stuck out to you in that process?
I mean, it was super simple process to go through, and the communication from the Liberals was interesting. They were giving because you join their email list, of course, and they were giving sort of equal screen time to all the candidates through their own sort of platform. And I was impressed with the turnout, though. How many people I think voted in this? Like 30,000 something.
Oh,
anyways,
more than that.
It wasn't a huge amount of people to vote for the current prime minister, is all I'm saying. It was a significant process to go through.
152,000 cast ballots.
39 million people
out of 40-some million human beings in Canada. But
yeah, not the electorate, of course.
There's like 300 and some thousand Liberals, registered Liberals. So just over half of them showed up to vote.
Yeah. So anyway, and there would have been a lot of new pickup, I'm sure, given the very visible nature of this one. So
Cool. And you voted for?
I voted for Mark Carney. It's true. I
Okay,
did.
so why?
Well, I just feel the adult in the room needs to be him for this next phase, and it's not going to be a long phase, and it may be his tenure may be very short lived if Polyev does pull it off, right? But I do think
Yep.
that he does feel like the more experienced person in the room to deal with the very chaotic nature of what's in front of us, and that's not going to be a status quo politician that's going to navigate these next few years, because we're dealing with something that's historic, that involves the private sector across the globe. It's just such a big issue that we have in front of us, that I think you need somebody who has way deeper connections and way deeper understanding of how the socio geopolitical economics of what Trump's trying to do is going to impact Canada. And I really bought into what he was saying about having plans, strategies, etc. around this, and having never really been in politics before, and using that experience to try to right this train. I don't think he's going to be around for long. So to me, he feels like that crisis prime minister to a T.
Okay. And what did you think about the convention?
I didn't pay too much attention to the convention, to be honest, so I can't comment on that.
Okay.
What are your
So,
thoughts?
well, I just one second. I'm pulling up the poll. So the weekly writ. So it says within the turnout was pretty good. For what it was. The convention was a packed house. CBC and everybody was there, giving full time, round the clock sort of coverage. Excuse me. And everybody lapped up. Even my mom was commenting on. I shouldn't say even my mom. My mom's a politico. She pays attention. She was a deputy mayor and on all kinds of stuff, boards and commissions and whatever. But yeah, like they were talking about Jean Chrétien's speech. I hate that guy. Oh yeah, no, the south of the border guy. Like this guy. I just every time I hear Jean Chrétien, I'm like, you can't make that accent up. It's so good
Yeah.
on so many fronts. Just give me 1 second here. So anyway, yeah, so I've got some numbers here, which is interesting. Like I said, everybody seems to have loved Jean Chrétien's speech. I just can't ever get over his accent. I'm like, man, this guy, all this time, he's stuck his guns on his English accent. And I mean, not that I make fun of it. It's just one of the most unique accents I think there is ever
Pretty
been
iconic, I
in
say.
iconic accents in Canadian political history. Okay, so let's talk about the results. So we've got this was staggering.
Yeah, like landslide.
First round 86.8%. Like that's 85% of the points for Mark
Yeah.
Carney. It's like,
They were convinced.
oh well, and for a sitting deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, to get the result she did with 7.3% of the votes, which is 12,000 votes. Sorry,
Yeah.
11,000 votes. Like, these are liberals. These people, like, it just, what a gut wrenching result for Chrystia
Yeah.
Freeland.
I
Who we
know, but I
like?
think it is, like you've been saying it over and over, the desire for dramatic change, is this. And I think this is the liberal version of that in Mark Carney, somebody who's not been a part of the party, who's not been part of the establishment there.
Do you think, though, that like Carney is just bringing us back to a Chrétien era style of politics?
I think that's all we can hope for at this point. It's like we've just gone back so far in time with the position we're in right now. Like if you're talking to me 6 months ago, I'd say, yeah, we need to progress. But now it just feels like we are going to have to hold on to the only good parts of capitalism that there really are, which is, the ability for people to move freely between these three nations to benefit economically. So, that now that that's under threat, it just feels like we have to have to hang on for dear life, honestly.
So, do you think the left is dead in Canada?
One can only hope.
Why do you say that? Because Christina
Because I
Gould.
think it's been always about the not left versus right. It's been, rich versus poor and people taking advantage and people being disadvantaged. So at this point, I think, are really truly seeing that. And it's unbelievable how much we've united under a flag that, again, 6 months ago, you would never have seen be so acceptable. Like, you couldn't have told me that was going to happen. Like, oh,
Oh
in
yeah,
6 months, you're going to be able to wear the Canadian flag again proudly. Like, what's going to happen to cause that?
yeah.
You know?
I couldn't have imagined 6 months ago having there be a huge amount of people in the country be excited about a banker.
I know, but it's all we
Uh
have. This is the dregs, as I like to say.
yeah, so I think the left is dead
Mhm.
in Canada. I really do. I don't think there's an appetite for left-wing populism. I don't think there's an appetite for the left. I think it's going to have to get way worse, like I said before. And I think the left is going to have to starve to death. Like, it's been playing this game of identity politics, and it's been playing a game of issues, an issue set to the people that people are just no longer polite towards. They're no longer, they don't just like, I think people tolerate it, and they were sort of like, yeah, you're right, we do suck, and we should be more inclusive, and we should be more understanding of people across these different spectrums. And that's true. Well, of course that's true. We should be.
Yeah.
It's not a decision to make, in my opinion. But wearing it the way it's been worn, leading with it the way it's been led, has led to a collapse in the identity of the left wing. And it's only people like Wap Canoe and Charlie Angus that are still sort of holding the threads together of what that left wing, New Democrat, more socialist lens is. But I don't think Mark Carney, like, I just don't think he has any of that left wing in him.
I mean, you saw Elizabeth May come out and say they need to work together and unite against this,
Yeah.
other side, right? So I think even those who've been declaring a lot of, who've been ringing alarm bells around some stuff federally are quieting down on that front. Although, you're now seeing in New Brunswick this week, the Greens came out with the news that their budget was slashed by the Liberals, right, here in New Brunswick.
Yeah, I saw that. And then I saw Marco there on the news just being like, this wasn't politically motivated. I don't know if it was or it wasn't. The Liberals have always been threatened by the Green Party in New Brunswick. But you know what? As much as I love David Kuhn, to be fair, the Greens had 3 shakes at it as getting official party status, essentially, without actually having met the threshold for official party status.
Right.
So we couldn't turn it, guys. We couldn't translate, with 13-14% of the vote, each election just was never going to cut it. And we had 3 elections. You and I bled and cried and poured ourselves into it, and we didn't pull it off. So to me, it's like, go back to your roots, try to come up with a message and an image and a approach that's going to galvanize New Brunswickers to give you official party status. And it is kind of surprising that they were given official party status for so long by the Conservatives, but that was politically motivated. You know why? Because the Conservatives benefit from the Green Party, right? Conservatives held on to 4 seats this last election because Green Party candidates were strong enough to stand up or overcome the Liberals.
Yeah.
But we tend not to compete with Conservative voters.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate kind of reality of what they have to live with. And yeah, I know they've said it's not politically motivated, but how much would it have been to just continue? I think it was like $100,000-$200,000, something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It feels a little just petty, I guess, is the vibe I got off that one versus, strategic or anything. That's not really gonna make a hill of beans, as they say, when it comes to the final budget here soon, which will be interesting. That's upcoming.
Yeah, big $400 million deficit in it. That's what it is. Okay, all right. So the poll tracker federally, let me just give you the most recent numbers here as we continue to talk about Carney, continue to talk about where we're heading. We're going to be in a federal election probably in the next week or two. You can all see that, right?
Yes.
So here is the poll tracker. Let's zoom in just a little bit. So here is where we're at right now as of 2 days ago. So post Carney takeover. We've got the Conservatives at 39.8%. We've got the Liberals at 31%, 31.9%. We've got Jagmeet Singh, the New Democrats, at 14. The Bloc at 6.6, the Greens at 4.2, and Maxime Bernier's party, the People's Party, at 2.5. And you know who I don't see on here? Well, I guess other. I don't see is Dominic Carney, the People's or the Future Canada Future Party.
Oh, right. It must be other. Yes, there you go.
I don't think they're gonna have a cross country candidate selection.
I haven't seen much from them, but I'm also not on X, so I don't know.
No, they're not on X. Dominic
really?
is, but the parties doesn't
Party's
seem to
not.
have any sort of game. So, and on that note, here in Menaquist, here in the riding, in Wayne Long's riding, we've just had the resignation of the riding president.
Yes, there's a lot of chatter around town that the Conservative Party of Canada is choosing the candidate, and there will not be a fair sort of runoff here in the St. John Rothsay riding, which is just so fascinating. They're taking an interest in our little corner of the country, but it looks like that has caused Leslie Kierstead, who's been involved for many, many years, to resign as the riding president. And I mean, Wayne's been shouting about this for weeks now, that all he's heard is that it's, been a really tough process for them to even get to where they're at. And there's 3 candidates, James something, should know this, Lisa Keenan, and then Melissa Walker.
I would be surprised if they didn't try to parachute somebody in.
Yeah, I think that's what's probably happening, but that's not going to go well for them.
The thing is, the Conservatives have so much bloody money that they know Wayne's weaknesses. They know the demographic weaknesses, and they know exactly what type of candidate to put in front of that demographic to galvanize. So that's what you're going to see happen here. Wayne said he was stepping down. He's a longtime incumbent. There is some incumbency advantage. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's vulnerabilities, and the Conservative Party has enough money that they have probably done 3 to 4 rounds of private polling here in this area, this neck of the woods. They have some strongholds with Williamson south of us.
Yep.
Who's been there for now, what, a decade?
Yeah, before Trudeau, I believe.
Yeah, he's Harper era, so he's like maybe 14 years in there, which is, I remember when he first came, they parachuted him down there from Ottawa. Everybody was so like, oh, he'll never win, he's not one of us. Well, he won. And it's just like, ugh, God, the people of Charlotte County, I just shake my head at you dudes and my old friends. I'm like, I don't know why you guys
a lot of conservatives
are the way you are. I mean, it's fine to be conservative. It's not that. But it's like, what's the appeal on that front with that person? Why do we think he gets it? And how has it been good for us? I can't tell you, but okay. So we're going to be in a federal election probably next week. Is that the consensus?
Yeah, and then we have 6 weeks of that, so that will be exciting. There will be a candidate that goes up against Wayne in our neck of the woods, And we just recently saw that Jake Stewart also declared that he would not be running again for the Conservative Party. So that opens up Miramichi.
Yep.
And Jake's been pretty controversial recently.
Oh yeah, his big fight with his staffer.
Yeah. So, I don't know how the CPC looks at New Brunswick. I'm sure they go, oh, there's 900,000 people maybe there. No big deal. We don't need to really concentrate too much on this area. That's my guess of how they feel about it. But maybe they did do a lot of internal polling. I don't know.
That's my guess too. But in this situation, every seat is going to matter.
Yes.
Now that we're back to a street fight between these two, because the Liberal vote is far more efficient than the Conservative vote. And what I mean by that is, the Conservatives are going to win by massive numbers in Saskatchewan and Alberta, right? Like they're just going to blow the competition out of the water. They always do. So when you look at them having 40%, that's just because the Liberals aren't even competing in
Right.
Alberta or Saskatchewan. And so it's artificially inflated. So the Conservatives are going to need to get 60, 70 seats outside of those seats. And so there's 5 or 6 here in New Brunswick
Yeah.
up for grabs. And they're not going to win in Quebec. They're probably not going to win in Quebec anywhere. The Bloc and the Liberals are probably going to do what they always do there. They tend not to go conservative. They did a little bit with Stephen Harper, but even that was pretty limited. So it's going to be interesting calculus, and we are going to try to get all of the folks we can on this pod during that election. We'll try. I don't know. We've already asked Mark Carney. We asked him during a leadership race, and Wayne Long said, Long messaged me and said, I'm working on it. So unlikely we're going to get the candidates, but I'm not going to vote for any of them. Right now, I am firmly entrenched in the I need to spoil my ballot lane.
Really? Do tell.
I have no reason, and the rest of this pod I think will reveal some of the reasoning behind it, because I don't think any of these politicians are currently putting anything on the table that speaks to the central issue, which is where we'll go next.
Okay.
So your central issue, remind us for this federal election.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think it's just not plunging into war. There's so much historical analysis that points us to being in this Poland 1938 state right now. And so to me, it really will be, can I trust this person to not plunge us into war?
Right.
I'm way more freaked out by this than you are, obviously. I just think we're dealing with a megalomaniac, and we can't predict what he's going to do. So you just want somebody in the driver's seat who's going to be steadfast and true.
Yeah. Carney certainly has those vibes. I'll give you that. There's no question in my mind about that. Which would normally be enough to convince me. Like I agree with what you're saying. I guess I've just become so convinced of something. And so we're going to invite our pseudo guest into this podcast. We don't really have a guest. What we have is a speech by somebody that I've been following and I've been sharing and I've been really struck by in the past 2 months. His name's Gary Stevenson. He's from the UK. And what he has to say resonates with me at a level that I haven't had a message resonate with me in a long time. I've certainly on this podcast talked about authors like George Monbiot, the idea of building a politics of belonging that gets beyond this politics of division and this politics of polarization, which is cheap, which is easy, which hits quick, which hits hard, which divides and creates camps and creates followers, but also creates a mess. So that message from folks like George and the systems he says we have to change obviously still stick out to me, but this is I think another step up on that. So I'm going to bring him in right now. We're going to share this screen. Now he's got a 5-minute speech. It's a bit of a longer speech for us, But the central issue on this campaign and on this election, I think he really lays out quite coherently in this 5 minutes. So I'm going to bring him up now. And just apologize for those of you on Rogers. This screen is going to seem quite small. I am going to try to zoom in. I can't full screen him, unfortunately. This is his TikTok account, public account. So Rogers TV, hopefully you don't ban us. But Gary, this is free. I think it's available on YouTube, but I couldn't find it for this podcast. So I just used this. And we're going to go. So here he goes. This is his speech in Washington, D.C. 2 years ago.
When I was 14, I used to deliver newspapers for £12 a week. That's $16. When I was 19 and I was studying maths and economics at the London School of Economics, for lunch I used to get these 2 Scotch eggs for 75p. Because that was the only way I could afford to eat lunch every day. When I just turned 25, I made my first $1 million by betting that the US economy would never recover from the financial crisis. Let me tell you how I did that. So I grew up in East London, right next to the skyscrapers of the financial district. And we used to see them in the background. We were playing football in the street. But the kids who played in the street next to those skyscrapers never got jobs inside them. And I know because I worked in one for 4 years. People used to say to me, "That's an interesting accent. Where are you from?" The reason I got that job is because I found out that before the financial crisis, Citibank used to hire 1 trader a year for a poker-style card game that was basically a maths game. I was good at maths and I was good at games, so I entered that competition and I won. And that is how in June 2008, I became an interest rates trader for Citibank without knowing anything about financial markets. 4 months later, I sat on the trading floor and I watched the world economy blow up. And all the traders and economists said, next year things will get better. And 1 year later, when things hadn't gotten better, all the traders and economists said, next year things will get better. And 1 year after that, when things still hadn't gotten better, all the traders and economists said, next year, things will get better. It was around about then that I started to get suspicious. You see, I was working on the trading floor and I was surrounded by very wealthy people from elite universities, from extremely rich families, from elite private schools. But I didn't come from that kind of background. And I was still living on the streets of East London. And I could see a lot of things that they couldn't see. Now, I could see how much people were struggling. How they couldn't afford to buy houses, how they couldn't get good jobs. So I could see my friends' mums selling their houses to support their kids who would never be able to afford homes of their own. So where are those homes going? Where are those people's money going? And I was working at the same time in those skyscrapers. And I'd been to those guys' luxury penthouses. And I'd heard about their $1 million bonus checks. So I knew where the money was going. So what happens to an economy where all the money flows to the richest and nothing is left for the rest? Well, I'll tell you what happens. That economy dies. And I'm not just saying that. I bet on that. I put a massive bet that the US economy would never recover from the financial crisis. And by the end of 2011, a little kid from Ilford, East London, who had just turned 25 years old, was Citibank's most profitable trader in the world. And that kid was me. And I did that by betting that the US economy, your economy, would die. And you know what they did? They gave me $2 million and they said, well done, mate, do it again. So I quit that job, but I didn't stop trading. I went home and I kept betting from my dining room table every year that your economy would die. And every year I was right, and every year I made a ton of money. But you know what? I don't want to be right anymore. And you know why? Because if your economy dies, my economy dies too. And my community, my friends and my family, their future, their hopes and dreams, they are dying as well. And I don't want that to happen. But it will happen. It's going to happen. It's happening right now. My economy is collapsing because your economy is collapsing, and hundreds of millions of people are not going to be able to afford homes, to have families. They don't know how they're going to feed their kids. That is what happens when an economy collapses, and it's happening right now. And the only way to stop that is to reduce inequality. And the only way to make that happen is to actually force rich people to pay their taxes. And the alternative is economic disaster. And I'm not just saying that, I'm betting on it. And you guys had better make sure that this time, for once, I'm wrong. And I really hope that you do. Thank you.
It's so hard. So this is the central issue, wealth inequality. We've talked about it on this pod before. It's a massive problem. You know, we've done everything we can, but and so, you know, you look at this and you say, every year things have gotten worse. He goes on, he's got a whole thing, he talks about it. How does he bet against the economy? Well, you short things that, you know, it should do well when things are going well. And he was an interest rate trader. So, you know, he's trading in different bonds, he's trading in different stocks that are heavily influenced by the interest rate going up or down. And so his bets were always that they're never going to go back up. So if you think of back to 2008, the interest rates were being tweaked by like 0.25%, right?
Yep.
Fine tuning right around the 4% to 5%, 3 to 5% rate, I think, for Canada. After 2008, they just got the hit my mic. Sorry, guys. After that, they just got the interest rate. They just drop it down to like 0.5, 1.5. Of course, COVID inflationary pressures heated up, but it's coming back down. In other words, we have not gotten to a sustainable place where there is an impact for people who save money and an impact for people who for the interest rates market, which is a sign that the banks, the big banks, are cutting those interest rates to try to stimulate growth in the economy because it's so slow and it's so bad. You know, I look at that and it's like, how is this not the central issue? And how can I give my vote to anybody who isn't talking about this?
Yeah, I understand.
And so it's like, okay, we give Pierre Poilievre. I'm not going to rule out Pierre Poilievre. Do I think he's a caustic SOB who's only good at one-liners and zingers? Yeah. But do I also think having the Conservative Party in power could provoke such a rude awakening for a bunch of people who walk around right now like this with blinders on? Everything's good, everything's fine, we just need to keep working hard, everybody's doing okay, blah blah blah. No imagination about how to change things, no sort of real thoughtful ideology on how to provoke improvement for people who are 40 and under, who have kids. You know, the worse off generation in the last 60 years is ours. And our kids probably will be as more worse off than we are if they keep going the way they are. And all of these people, 45 and older, walk around like everything's good enough. And, oh, we got Susan Holton power. No, we got Wab Canoe. And look, it's not so bad. It's bad. And this guy is somebody who was paid handsomely and made a killing proving how bad it is. And so if Pierre Poilievre and his team get in there and it forces those people to be like, oh, maybe we really do need to put something on the table that's transformative and not just tweak around the edges on things. Maybe that's a good thing. You know,
that's the Trump silver lining. I mean, that is what we've said is the benefit of Trump right now, is that he is opening a bunch of people's eyes to just how bad it is.
The problem with Trump,
I guess I just want to avoid that.
Yeah, I get you. But the problem with Trump is that he wants everybody in a squid game and he has the means to achieve it. Poilievre doesn't. So, you know, Trump and Elon Musk, they want all of us 99% running around trying to be the 1%.
Yeah.
instead of changing the game, right? If anybody's seen Squid Game 2, change the game. Do not play their game. They want it so that one person wins and they want you to all kill each other to get there.
Yeah.
Don't do
Don't do
that. But you know what? That needs broad public support.
Yeah.
I
don't think
get
that's there.
it. It's not. I get it. It's not. That's the hard part for me. So it's like, why bother? And so till I can look one of these leaders in the eye and talk to them and pose them that question, why should a guy whose livelihood revolves around swinging a hammer right now and who is prone to do worse than his father did and his mother did, give somebody who's still playing the same game, it seems, their vote? And until I can get that question answered, I'm just like, I'm spoiling my ballot. Like, I like
Okay.
Wayne. Wayne's been supportive of me. It's not about that. Wayne certainly would get my vote before anybody else would, and that's prone to change. I'm prone to change my ideas on that, of course. But to me, it's like I don't know how to avoid that as the central issue. And if nobody's talking about it coherently, like even Jagmeet Singh's not talking about it properly, in a way that's cutting through to people. But it's so true, and we face it down here. Like we see it on such full display. We see how the public rallies behind billionaires,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, what? But they just don't know. They don't realize. They really believe, well, my job is, this is my job, and these guys pay me good, and I want to see them do well so I can do well. But all it's done is it's forced an us versus them category.
Yeah.
And St. John's sort of ground zero. It's like the front lines of that type of class warfare, where you've got these massive billionaire companies with thousands of jobs, making billionaires billions of dollars, and Cook Aquaculture headquarters, and JDI's big mill, and NB Southern's big port, and Irving Oil's big refinery, and on we could go. But we have some of the lowest average wages in the province, and we have some of the highest rates of poverty, and we have some of the highest rates of illiteracy, and we have, on and on.
Yeah, and we just, the corporate welfare piece is alive and strong here in Canada in general. Like that's just been the way. And I think you were going to be on Global talking about this, but one of the things you said about how, we typically spend a lot of taxpayer dollars backing rich companies who can get this kind of help and do this kind of, strategic work around a tariff, for instance, because they operate in many different jurisdictions. So they would have this, it's not like a tariff isn't a new concept to them.
No.
So they have the capacity to work on these issues themselves versus spending a bunch of taxpayer dollars to like give subsidies and bailouts and things like that. We're still very strong on our corporate welfare giving side of things, no question.
Yes. And I think the big thing there is like we just lack that broad public awareness, that class consciousness. The poor don't vote. They don't know. And the leaders aren't trying to bring them along. They aren't trying to educate. I mean, I think we legitimately are. We're trying to make a platform available to people that's semi-entertaining and talks about our local issues and provincial issues. But you look at Luke Randall, who is the minister responsible for ONB. If Luke can start to chew on some of this stuff and take a bite out of that organization, like ONB is a perfect example of a pseudo billionaires interest group, just like the Chamber of Commerce is, right? Chamber of Commerce, Opportunities New Brunswick, economic development agencies work for those who have means. They are not mandated to improve the lives of my buddy down the road who runs a glass blowing place that does a tremendous work. They're not invested in my company, trying to make us more profitable next year and help us troubleshoot some of our bottlenecks so that we can, grow our grow our reach and grow our impact. They're not trying to help the farmer in middle New Brunswick diversify his crops so he doesn't just rely on McCain's buying his potatoes, which can dry up. So with that in mind, you're like, well, who do these organizations work for? Well, they're trying to help Cook Aquaculture bring in IT workers, or JDI bring in IT workers, or they're trying to help big companies come here, which may create jobs and may not, but a ton of staff time goes to solving the problems of companies that know how to solve their own problems.
Yeah. No, it's mind-boggling that economic development is stuck to the same thing. In fact, we're seeing a lot of small business really talk very openly about their struggles. And we were down in St. John here for dinner just a couple nights ago, and it was just empty. Like, and I get it, it's winter, but it's spring now. It's getting there. It's nice out. It's people just don't have the funds to discretionarily spend on things like restaurants and sort of small businesses and things like that.
Yeah.
They're going for bulk and for cheap, which I get as a house manager right now.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
It's like a balance, and the budget is tight, and you're constantly analyzing every purchase you're making. Like, it very much is always on your mind. Like, what are the finances?
And so I guess
next piece.
Let's spend a minute, and just the last few minutes. What would markedly improve our lives?
Lower rent.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I guess lower carrying costs in general of just living. Because it really feels like there is no space for saving anything ever anymore. Where would you've seen our budget, let's say, unless you're sacrificing something like, your grocery bill, say what I call, your vices, like going out to eat, things like that, participating in the economy, essentially.
Drinking beers.
You're basically taking all the joy out of your life if you're going to, quote unquote, save any money. At least from what I can see.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you can find joy in simple things. Like I find joy in tapping trees and all that stuff, and that's fine. I
still
think
have to spend $100 on buckets. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But so cost of living. That's your response. How does the government impact cost of living? What could they do?
Well, I mean, that's a big question for such a short amount of time left, really. What could they do? I think one of the big things is what you and Fred talked about, which is that, the regulation of our food industry and the subsidization of our food industry to make it so you're not, dropping $8 for a thing of berries. You just feel, I heard there's first appearances of dysentery now out west in the US.
Oh my God.
Like, people can't afford things that keep them healthy, and I think the government can immediately impact that. They've done it for the dairy industry for decades. Subsidized milk. Yeah. So they know how to do it. It needs to be more far reaching, and also encourage that, grown here in Canada piece where we aren't needing to go outside to fix that part of our food system. So supplement that part of our food system.
So let's put a number to that.
Okay.
If you and I, and let's be transparent here. So we're a household. You have mat leave from your former position, teaching at college. We both take a very small stipend as counselors, and I work, and we are a 2-income family. We have a lot of kids. There's 6 kids between us, so our expenses are high. We have a new car because we needed to amalgamate vehicles. So we offloaded your vehicle, we offloaded my vehicle, and we got a bigger vehicle. But it's expensive. It's an 8-passenger. We had to have an 8-passenger for 6 kids and 2 adults. That's the numbers. We only have one vehicle. If we had an additional, if our rent was reduced, what, $500 a month?
I'd say 1,000.
You'd say 1,000? Okay.
Yeah.
But let's imagine that our situation is extremely high. Like we pay $2,900 in rent. It's ridiculous for this 5-bedroom house. It's a house and it's expensive. It's all we could find to fit everybody. It is what it is. We had to pay it, so now we have to have an income that supports it, which sucks, but it is what it is. Let's imagine our situation's like exceptionally bad on the costs of living. But let's take our situation and say the average person's probably, if you could put $500 a month off of their cost of living between groceries and rent, that would be a good goal.
Yes.
Think that's right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so if we take 500, there's 40 million people in this country. Let's double check that. Census Canada. Population of Canada. Sorry, guys. I should know this, but I think it's around 40 million. I just want to see the updated. Oh, sorry. 2022 was 38.93 million. That was the last census. The real-time model says, population clock says 41,648,000 people. So if we imagine the top 10% don't need help, right?
Right.
The top 10% of people just don't need our support at all, and probably the top 20% don't either. But let's lose 10%. So let's say 36 million people, round number. 36 million people are in more or less a similar position as us. Some are poorer and need more. Some are richer and need less. But let's use a round number. 36 million people times 500 a month. Well, first of all, let's do that by year. So 500 a month, 500 a month times 12 is 6,000. So 36 million people times $6,000 a year. That number, do you know what it is?
What?
$216 billion.
Okay.
Okay.
A year.
$216 billion. Now, just give me 1 second here, because there's one thing I remember seeing I want to check. Okay, so according to just the numbers we know about, just the numbers of what we know about, we're looking at on July 28th of 2022, a CRA study found, this is the Toronto Star, found between 2014 and 2018. So this is sort of outdated. I expect this number to be quite a bit higher. Do you know how much individual Canadians did not pay in personal income tax?
Isn't it like $1 trillion or something?
It's not that much. It's probably that much in the States. It's $112 billion
112
in
billion.
federal taxes.
I think that is a state's number. I did just hear that recently.
Yeah, we were watching that Jon Stewart poverty alleviation guy.
Yeah.
Corporations did not pay around 36 billion. Individuals didn't pay around 52. So without levying any new taxes, without increasing taxes on anybody, in 4 years we missed about 112 billion. It's 20. Let's say it's $25 billion a year. So you look at that calculator and you say $216 billion a year to reduce the cost of living for 36 million people. Now, we can tighten that up, right? Anybody who makes over 100K, sorry, you're on your way. That expands it even more. If your household made over $100,000, you don't qualify. We can tighten that up. But just in existing taxes in evasion, this country missed out on $25 billion a year. Wow. So when we actually imagine taxing wealth at the marginal rate we used to, it's not a stretch, I don't think, to add $100 billion in income. Like, people think, well, that's crazy, Brent. You can't be true. I found out the other day from a resident that I was talking to about this, and I trust his number because he broke it down how he got there. Do you know how long it takes the Irving Oil Refinery to pay its property tax bill in operations?
No.
Less than 1 day.
Wow.
So even if they are into debt up to their eyeballs and it takes 3 months of operations to pay their debt. Let's just imagine that's the case. I don't know. They don't show their numbers. That's one corporation that pays its entire property tax bill in less than a day. It's other taxes. Who knows how long it takes them to pay that? How much is evasion? How much is offshore? It's like, but we don't talk this way, right? So it's difficult. But I do think this is what people need to see in front of them. Like, this is just a number. We just did it. Was it that complicated? Because at first you were saying, oh, we couldn't possibly come up with the solution in the length of time in this
Yes.
podcast. We just did. It's a number. It's a number. It's $216 billion.
All right. Like, because I do think that would be a game changer. And essentially it is like a form of UBI, right? Like a universal basic income. Because that essentially is what would help prop up this society as it transitions into this new one.
And guess what? When you give somebody who makes $100,000, $500 a month, 90% of it goes back into the economy. So
of course.
So you stimulate consumption.
Absolutely, because you finally feel a slight amount of freedom. Probably not too much, not for long.
No, $500 a month is not a lot of money for a lot of people. But for some people, it's the difference between everything.
Absolutely, 100%.
So I think we can solve it.
Okay.
I think we can solve it. It's a number. And then, you know what? Because if all we did as a society was stay fixated on that number and say, okay, experts, challenge us. If you're an economist, why shouldn't the country vacuum up $216 billion a year? Why should we not do that?
It's going back into it.
Companies will leave. Well, companies will also now have their people spending money on them. So companies aren't stupid. They don't want to pay the money, but they do want the consumption. So we can't. So economists who come to us with that idea, well, companies will just leave. They'll never pay those taxes. And it's like, okay, that might be true. Might not be. We can't prove that. But what we do know is that if you give 36 million Canadians $500 more a month, and of course, 36 million Canadians, that's a bit ridiculous because that's not how many households there are. I should have done the math a little bit better.
Well, I mean, if that's the high end, let's say.
So we're at the very, very high end. And we already proved there's $100 billion in taxes that are currently owed that don't go paid every year. And so, you know, to me, this is just the only number that should matter. And it should be our best and brightest minds and our best communicating leaders fixated on that number or a number like it and said, this is what we have to do. We have to be able to reduce the cost of a family that makes less than $100,000 a year by $500 a month. That's the only goal. That's all we're going to do. That's the only message we're going to have about the economy. And if you're a small business, you'll care because you'll know that your neighbors now have money to spend on your goods. And if you're a big company, you'll care because your workers will have money to spend on your goods and your workers will be better off and won't be so sick and won't have dysentery. Like, it's
imagine you don't having to worry about your workers having dysentery.
It's laughable, but it's sad.
It's so sad. And there was a guy on here on TikTok, I think, saying like, it just feels every day like you're just waiting for something to happen, right? Yeah. So that starts to wear on people. It starts to wear on a society. It starts to wear on groups. And that's where, you know, there's the doomsday clock. We're kind of counting that down. It's never been so close to midnight as it is right now.
So I just found out there's actually 15 million households. So the updated number for 15 million houses to say $500 a month. Oh my God, Joanna, it's $9 billion. I quit. So we could reduce our, you know, everybody's income. Anyway, oh my gosh, that's insanity to me. I should have done this earlier. I'm sorry it's happening at the end of the podcast, you all. For $18 billion, our household could have its cost of living reduced by $1,000. And that would just mean that we collect the money from corporations that they're currently owe. That's not even raising taxes. We could actually lower taxes on everybody else and just collect their taxes. and pay everybody $1,000 toward their cost of living. No. See, this is why none of these are getting my vote right here. Is I'm an idiot. I'm a dumb armchair economist, and it shouldn't be this easy. It shouldn't be this easy to know the number and to be able to say this is what we should do. Because who the hell am I going to go out on the street tomorrow and anybody's going to disagree with me about $1,000 changing their lives? No. Anyway, sorry, Rogers, you just had to beat me out like 19 times.
And on that note, we thank everyone for listening for this week. Yeah, what would $1,000 do for your household? That's the question this week. How would that impact you? Or, if you're single and flirty and hanging out there at $500, what's it going to do? So thank you all for listening. Brent's going to go have a cigarette.
Gotta have a cigarette, and I gotta go put some wood on the fire for my maple syrup because I can't afford maple syrup unless I make it myself. So that's cool. Peace out, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Friday.
You're watching Rogers TV.